The average person will work for 47 years and still need to keep working. Somewhere in the same world, a handful of people retire before 35. The difference between them isn't luck, income, or inheritance. It's 5 years of math nobody actually runs. So we're going to run them on one real person, month by month, for the full 5 years. Ryan is 27 years old. He makes $85,000 a year, has $5,000 in savings, and he's decided he's done working by age 32. Not done with his current job, done. Forever. To pull this off, he needs to accumulate $750,000 in the next 5 years, starting from almost nothing, on a salary where the average person his age saves about $4,000 annually. The math says he needs to save 75% of every paycheck, earn a 10% return every single year, and never have a financial emergency. Miss any one of those and the timeline collapses. Most financial YouTubers would tell you this is impossible. A few would sell you a course promising it's easy. Both are lying. The real answer is more interesting, because Ryan can actually get there, just not the way he thinks. And the version of freedom waiting for him at the end of 5 years looks nothing like the version he's picturing right now. This is what 5 years of aggressive financial independence actually looks like, month by month with real numbers. Before we follow Ryan anywhere, we need to define what he's actually chasing, because financial freedom is one of those phrases people throw around without ever pinning down what it means. In the real math, there are 3 versions of it, and they're wildly different. The first is full financial independence. This is the dream version, enough money invested that you never have to earn another dollar. Your portfolio covers every expense, forever. Vacation, healthcare, mortgage, the works. The second is lean financial independence. Same idea, smaller lifestyle. Your investments cover the basics: housing, food, utilities, modest transportation, and nothing more. If you want extras, you pick up some work. But you don't have to. The third is coast financial independence. This one is sneaky. It means you've invested enough early that even if you stop contributing today, compound growth alone will carry you to a full retirement by 60 or 65. You still have to work to pay current bills, but you never have to save for retirement again. Each of these has a number attached to it, and the number comes from something called the 4% rule. A guideline from retirement research that says if you withdraw 4% of your portfolio each year, it should last roughly 30 years through most market conditions. Flip that math around, and it tells you how much you need invested to cover any annual expense. Multiply your yearly spending by 25. Ryan has done the math on his life. If he moves somewhere cheaper, drops his car, and lives lean, he can get his annual expenses down to about $30,000. Multiply that by 25, and his number is $750,000. That's lean FI for Ryan, $750,000 in 5 years, starting from 5. This is where most people do the math in their head, realize the size of the climb, and close the tab. But Ryan isn't most people. And the next 5 years of his life are going to prove something more interesting than whether the goal is possible. The single most important number in all of personal finance is not your income. It's not your investment return. It's your savings rate, the percentage of what you earn that you actually keep and invest. Here's why it matters more than anything else. At a 15% savings rate, which is roughly what a disciplined middle-class earner puts away, it takes about 43 years to reach financial independence. That's a full career. At a 25% savings rate, it drops to 32 years. At 50%, it's 17 years. At 65%, it's 10 years. And to hit it in 5 years, Ryan needs to save roughly 75% of every single paycheck. Let's translate that into dollars. Ryan earns $85,000. After taxes, he takes home around $65,000. A 75% savings rate means he invests about $48,750 of that, which leaves him $16,250 a year to live on. That's $1,354 a month for rent, food, transportation, utilities, health insurance, and everything else. In most American cities, that barely covers rent. In Ryan's current city, it doesn't even cover that. So Ryan does the first thing anyone serious about this timeline has to do. He moves. He leaves his expensive metro area for a low cost of living city where a one-bedroom apartment runs $700 a month. He sells his car and buys a used bicycle. He cancels every subscription that isn't essential. He stops eating out. He learns to cook the same 6 meals on rotation. It is not a glamorous year. He misses weddings because of travel costs. He turns down bachelor parties. He stops going to concerts. His social life contracts to a handful of friends who understand what he's doing and don't mind meeting for walks instead of dinners. But the math starts working. By the end of year 1, Ryan has invested $48,000. With a modest return, his portfolio sits at roughly $56,000. He's on pace. Barely. But he's also discovered something that every aggressive saver discovers in year 1. You cannot cut your way to $750,000 on an $85,000 salary. The math simply doesn't stretch that far. Even at 75% savings, 5 years of contributions only gets him to around $250,000. The other $500,000 has to come from somewhere else. And that's where year 2 begins. Ryan now understands what every serious FI chaser eventually learns. There are only 3 levers in this game. Lever 1 is income, how much money comes in. Lever 2 is expenses, how much money goes out. Lever 3 is returns, how hard your invested money works while you sleep. Year 1 was pure expense compression. Year 2 is about pulling the income lever because that's where the real acceleration comes from. Ryan attacks income from 3 directions at once. First, he negotiates. He's been at his company for 2 years and has never asked for a raise. He builds a case, specific accomplishments, market salary data for his role, a calm, prepared ask. He gets a 12% bump. His base moves from $85,000 to $95,000. Second, he stacks skills. He's an analyst, but he notices the analysts making more money all have a specific certification and experience with one particular software suite. He spends 6 months of evenings earning the certification and building the skills. He then job hops to a new role that pays $110,000. A realistic 30% jump when combining internal negotiation and an external move. Third, he starts a side income using the same skills he uses at work. Freelance consulting, 10 hours a week, billed at $75 an hour. That's another $39,000 a year before taxes. By the end of year 2, Ryan's total income has gone from $85,000 to roughly $149,000. His expenses have stayed at around $18,000 because he kept the lean lifestyle from year 1. His savings rate is now pushing 85%. Year 2, ending portfolio, approximately $135,000. Now, here's the honest critique, because this video is not going to pretend what Ryan did is easy or universal. Most people cannot execute what year 2 requires. Negotiating a raise demands a job where performance is measurable. Skill stacking demands energy most full-time workers don't have after a 40-hour week. Side income demands a marketable skill, legal permission from your employer, and enough stamina to work evenings without burning out. The reason FI in 5 years is rare isn't that the math is impossible. It's that the lifestyle required to pull every lever this hard simultaneously is something most people legitimately don't want. And that's a valid choice. Ryan chose it. Most viewers watching this won't. And by the end of this video, you'll see why that might actually be the smarter move. Year 3 is the most important year of the simulation because it's the year Ryan could stop. And it's the year most of you should stop. Entering year 3, Ryan has $135,000 invested. He's 29 years old. The market, on average, returns about 8% real growth after inflation. Here's a calculation that changes everything. If Ryan never contributes another dollar to his investments, if he stops saving aggressively, goes back to a normal life, buys a car, travels, enjoys his income, and simply lets that $135,000 sit in the market for the next 30 years, it grows to approximately $1.36 million by the time he's 59. That is full financial independence by traditional retirement age without him ever saving another cent. This is Coast FI, and it's the secret most aggressive savers don't want to talk about because it undercuts the entire premise of extreme frugality. Let's put this in perspective with a comparison. Meet Jake, same age as Ryan. Same starting salary, same city, same job, same background, but Jake did what financial advisors typically recommend. He saved 15% of his income starting at 22, invested in index funds, and otherwise lived his life. At the start of year 3 in our timeline, Jake has about $38,000 invested, less than a third of Ryan's pile. If you just compared their account balances today, Ryan looks like he's winning in a landslide. But watch what happens if you zoom out. Jake keeps saving 15% of his income every year until he's 65. He ends with roughly $1.4 million, comfortably retired. Ryan, if he stops contributing at 29, ends with roughly $1.36 million at 59. Same destination, more or less, except Ryan arrives 6 years earlier. Ryan is not beating Jake by a factor of 10. Ryan is buying 6 years. Maybe a decade if he continues contributing at a moderate rate. That's a lot. But it's not the order of magnitude difference the brutal lifestyle might suggest it is. This is the fork in the road, and it's the fork you need to see clearly. If you are watching this and realizing that Ryan's year 1 and year 2 sound like a nightmare, you are not failing at this game. You have an option that almost no one talks about on YouTube. You can pursue Coast FI. Front-load your savings in your 20s and early 30s. Hit a Coast FI number, often somewhere between $100,000 and $200,000 depending on your age and goals, and then ease off. Live your life. Let compound growth finish the job. Coast FI is not a failure state. It's a legitimate finish line. And for most people watching this, it's the right finish line. Ryan, however, chose the harder path. He's going to keep going. 2 years left. So far, this simulation has used an assumption that the stock market returns roughly 10% a year on average. That number is real. The S&P 500 has averaged about 10% annually over the last century, but averages hide something that can break a 5-year plan. Any given 5-year window in market history can look nothing like the average. Let's run 3 scenarios for Ryan's year 4, starting from his year 3 position of about $200,000 invested after another year of aggressive contributions. Bull case, markets deliver 12% annually through year 4. Ryan's portfolio grows to approximately $260,000 from returns alone, plus another $90,000 in contributions, and he ends the year at $350,000. He's ahead of schedule. Base case, markets deliver 8%. Ryan ends year 4 at roughly $315,000. He's on track, but tight. Bear case, markets drop 15% during year 4. Ryan's $200,000 becomes $170,000 before any contributions. Even adding $90,000 in savings, he ends the year at $260,000. His timeline has just collapsed by 18 months. This is a concept called sequence of returns risk. A bad year early in your accumulation phase hurts dramatically more than a bad year late because you have less time to recover. If that 15% drop happens in year 10 instead of year 4, Ryan barely notices. Happening when he's this exposed, with most of his future gains still coming from compounding on a small base, it's devastating. This is why pure FI math is seductive but fragile. The 10% return assumption is not a guarantee. It's an average across a century of very bumpy rides. Any individual 5-year stretch can deliver anywhere from negative 20% to positive 90%, and the plan has no room for the downside. Let's say year 4 hits Ryan's base case, 8% returns.